Okay, look at all these people in here.
Phyllis,
Very
we have Phyllis,
cool.
Tony. Man, this is great.
This is
Alec,
awesome.
Alex yawning. He's had a hard day. Thumbs up, though.
So we have video, a fun bunch of people on video, a couple of people on audio only.
Ron Kaniva looks like the winner of the Larry David lookalike contest. Only with shorter hair.
He must be in Holland or something.
Yeah,
The
or he has a
background,
green
yeah.
screen. Ginger. Hey, there's Joe doing amazing work on Long Island. I spoke at his
Hi,
camera
Rick.
club. How are you?
Good, doing good.
Good. And Phyllis got this to work. Where's Jack? Oh, we can't hear.
You're muted, Phyllis. So.
Oh, yeah, don't forget to unmute you guys. TJ.
Yeah. Jack's downstairs.
Hey,
Hey,
TJ,
we got
how
a
are
couple
you?
more people
How you doing?
joining in.
Boy, this is fun. Does everyone have their
Great.
beverage?
Oh, good. Look at that. Awesome.
Ah.
Very cool.
Oh, that's a disguised beverage. That's good. That's like Juan. You don't know what Juan's drinking.
Well, now I'll let people know what I'm drinking. I just wanted it to be a
Yeah,
reveal.
we have to wait, right? That's a big surprise.
No, it's not a big surprise, but yeah, that's right.
Well, it's half empty. It's like, oh, a little left.
Yeah, we have a minute here, and then we'll get started. Good to see all these folks on here. This is great.
This is fun.
This will be fun for sure.
You want to join?
There is Freddie Clark got either a haircut or his hair got really long and he put it in a ponytail.
I'm just slicking it back.
Very nice.
Very nice.
Just slicking it back. I'm preparing for when it is gone. How's everybody doing?
Oh, great, great. Freddie plays guitar.
People more coming in.
Hey, Freddie, big day. I got my heat and AC unit put in my barn.
Oh, excellent.
Hey, Greg Vaughan.
Yeah, Greg is here. Jim is here. Alex is here.
Alex Morley. I was in his house. I was in that room.
Linda and Mike are here. TJ, Sarah, Cindy, Tommy, lots of great people here. Awesome.
We have to tell Alec to unmute unless he doesn't want to say anything.
So yeah, guys, you're all by default muted, but if you want to speak up, you can unmute.
Hi.
Hey, Alex, how are you?
Great. How are you doing?
Very, very good.
Sorry, I was out of the room, so.
What do you drink? Well, we're going to be revealing what we're drinking shortly. Well, it's 5 o'clock, so.
It's 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock. That's what we're drinking. So folks, let's get started here. Thank you for joining us on our first of what we hope to be will be many photo happy hours. We all hope you got all your beverages of choice with you. I know I do, and I know Rick does. Cheers, everybody.
Yes, cheers. And in honor of Alex Morley, I have the dead guy. Right, Alex?
Cheers.
And Greg Vaughan knows about that too, right?
Yeah, the Dead Guy Ale from Rogue Brewery out in Newport, Oregon.
But I even have
awesome.
the Rogue Brewery shirt on.
Very cool.
And they do airport delivery.
Airport delivery. Holy moly.
Freddie, what are you drinking?
At the moment, just water.
Oh, really? Well, you're still invited. I see Tommy Armstrong. This is good. So, Juan, you want to tell everybody what's going on here? How much fun are we going to have?
Yeah, absolutely. So, hope everybody's staying safe and healthy. These happy hours is really kind of free form. And our plan is for them to last 30 minutes. And during these sessions, Rick and I will cover many different topics. But we also want to hear from you guys about things that you want us to talk about or things that you want us to cover. But first of all, I want to make sure to ask you guys to please forgive us as we figure this out. This is our, like I said, our first session. And chances are that we're going to stumble on the first couple of these, but I promise we'll get better at it. And on this first episode, Rick and I have selected 2 images to present and discuss. But before we get into that, I wanted to ask you, Rick, what you're drinking, but you kind of beat me to the punch, right?
Yeah, I'm drinking the Dead Guy Ale, and I see Linda Marshall there down the bottom. I bet she's drinking wine, red wine. No,
I have.
I have to drive, so it's tea.
oh, yes.
I'm drinking Sam Adams Porch Rocker, which is a seasonal brew, one of my favorites for the summer. I stock up in the spring because I love it so much. So I can have some over the winter and over the fall as well.
And Linda Cullivan, where's Mike? And what are you drinking? I don't know if Linda could hear us.
I'm drinking Austin Street Patina.
Okay. I hope we get to see. I hope we get to see Mike.
Yes.
There he is.
Also, we have Brenda. Look at all these folks that we have here. This is awesome. This is great.
Well, you know what? These are really trying times, troubling times, distressing times, and all this stuff. So I think it's important for us to get together, have some fun, and also keep the learning going. So, yes, we're going to be sharing what we're drinking, but each show, I think, as Juan was saying, we're going to share some of our pictures along with some tips. So it's going to be fun and educational for everybody.
Right. And then, again, yes, Rick and I are known for doing stuff that we like to have fun at. We don't like to do things that are kind of chores. So that's why we came up with this idea of happy hour, especially now that we're all looking for something to do and to connect with other photographers. So Rick, why don't we get started? My idea for this show was really kind of came out of a post that I recently made on Facebook, and I posted on Rick's group, Phototherapy. And it was about an image. It's old. It's like 18 years old that I made a long time ago that was, kind of important to me. And I listed the reasons why that was important. And that post is what kind of inspired me for the topic for this happy hour. But Rick, why don't you get started and tell us about your images? What is it that bring up your images and tell us what you like about them?
Okay, I'm going to start, if I could do this right, share screen. Excuse me. So everyone can see this picture of these king penguins, not to be confused with emperor penguins. So this is one of my favorite pictures from all my trips to Antarctica. It's taken in South Georgia, which relatively speaking is not too far from Antarctica. And if you're planning to go to Antarctica after all this stuff is over, I suggest definitely making the Antarctica, South Georgia, Falklands trip, not just going to Antarctica, because you're looking at a penguin colony with millions of penguins. But I chose this picture because it illustrates so many different techniques. One, I don't know if Mike's on, but I think Mike came up with the word Sammonisms for all my tips, right, Juan?
Yeah, that's right. Spike was the one who came up with that, isn't it?
I think so. So these are quick tips. So number one is use your camera like a spaceship. This is actually the picture I envisioned before I left New York. I wanted to get down. I wanted to have some penguins in the foreground in focus, and I wanted to have the scene in the background in focus. So my first tip is use your camera like a spaceship. Juan, how many times have you seen this? People come on a workshop for the first time. They set the camera up on a tripod at eye level and they shoot, right?
And they don't move. That's one of my pet peeves. People go in the location, they sit there and they don't move and make the same shot over and over and over again. And they got 20 copies, 30 copies of the same image.
Right. Can you see my mouse moving, by the way?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
So anyway, use your camera like a spaceship. I'm getting down low because when you see eye to eye, when you shoot eye to eye, the person looking at the photograph can relate more to the subject, whether it's a person or an animal. The other thing it demonstrates is separation. Notice how these penguins are separated from each other almost totally, except for that little fin there on the middle one. But also, these 3 penguins, they're actually another tip, they're not, dead center is deadly, another Sammonism, they're off to the side, but these 3 penguins are separated from even all the other penguins over here on the left. So separation is important. Those of you who have been to Photoshop World, and I've heard Jay Maisel speak, he talks a lot about gesture, and it's the gesture. I really love the gesture of this penguin here. it's a lucky shot. You know, the gesture of this guy looking back this way with his head over this penguin's head. We also have the gesture of the feet. So, you know, I have more than a few pictures of this because I had my camera on high frame rate. I'm using the Canon EOS R, and I'm using the flip out screen, so I'm holding it down as I'm walking along. So I wanted a little movement to the still picture. So this is why, another reason why I like it. I like it because of the gesture. So that adds some movement. The exposure. This is why, as Juan knows, you have to shoot raw, right? If you look at the at right over here, you know, we have detail in the really bright areas, and we have detail in the dark areas over here. So I shot raw, and I always expose for the highlights, you know, the brightest part of the scene. So it's because it's easier to open up the shadows than toning down the highlights if they're overexposed. So another tip then is expose for the highlights. Probably the most important thing about this picture is the mood and the feeling. You know, if this was taken on a bright, sunny day, I don't think it would have the same type of feeling. So that Juan, you've been to Antarctica. It's overcast a lot, right?
Yeah, most of the time, actually.
Yeah, it is. So I like the mood and the feeling, and it tells a story of these penguins, all these millions of penguins on South Georgia Island. But finally, it really illustrates. And a lot of you guys, I know Phyllis has heard me talk about this a lot, and Linda Marshall. We just talked about this recently. My one picture promise, that when you go someplace, you know, rather than using the spray and pray approach, right, or having OCD, obsessive clicking disorder, have one picture in mind. So this is the picture, this is the type of picture I had in mind. A lot of people were shooting there with their 600 and 800 millimeter lens, and those pictures could look like they were taken in a zoo, right? Or a wildlife park. So I wanted, this was taken with the 24-105 for the 24 millimeter setting, also at f/22, so I got everything in the scene in focus. So anyway, I think all these tips make this picture very illustrative to start off our first happy hour. So yes, we're going to have some fun, but I hope these tips help you out. And then again, sometime during this, because Juan's going to coordinate this, we're going to ask some questions. Hi, Sarah Cahill. Okay, so Juan, back to you, I think.
Well, no, why don't you do your second image, and then I'll do mine.
Okay, I will do my second image. So here's the second image. And the reason I showed that one first is because I have two pictures here. And this picture on the left was taken in Antarctica, and this was taken in our driveway where Juan has been, where Linda Marshall has been, where Mike and Linda have been, a couple of other people have been. And this is a great shot, I think, on the right, but I'm saving why I think it's a great shot, although some people might think it's a compositional mess and, and a couple of other things. But over here on the left here, we have a lot of this picture illustrates a lot of the same things that I just talked about. We have gesture. And this is when I'm going through my wildlife photographs, this is how I pick my keepers. It's really about the gesture. You look at Juan's pictures, it's about the gesture, the movement, the expression. And someone saw this on our phototherapy Facebook page, and they said this definitely deserves like a caption contest. It's a lucky shot. We're driving around in the Zodiac, and I've been there a few times. I've never seen the penguins on this beautiful blue ice like this before, but they are having some kind of argument. But we have separation again. And although this penguin's face is over this penguin's body, right, on the right here, it's really isolated by all the white here. So I have other pictures where the beaks are, you know, the top beak and the bottom beak are over to the left there, and it's just not as nice. So I'm always seeking separation because we see the world in 3D and our cameras see in 2D. So it's the gesture, it's the separation, and I like there's a sense of mystery. You're wondering really what this guy is saying. But once again, exposing for the highlights. So we have detail in the white, and you can see in the black feathers. So I'm very proud of the picture that I just showed you in this picture. And I'll tell you why this picture, I think, is a good picture. Susan and I, and a lot of you have met Susan, we heard this owl for 2 months. And we couldn't find it every day, every night. We go out with a flashlight, whatever. We're always looking for this owl, and we couldn't find it. So one morning we both heard it, and we both basically found it at the same time. So I go out and I look up. It's pretty high up. I don't know, maybe it's about 30 or 40 feet high up in a tree. So I'm using, my telephoto lens here. And I just got that little baby on the one. You're a bird person. Owlet? Is that what you call a little baby?
An owlet, yep. Absolutely.
And now that little baby was looking right at me, and the mommy's looking at me. So yes, that branch is covering the owl's right eye. The background's a little overexposed. It's really busy. But when I got this shot, I could not wait to share it with Susan and Marco. I ran into the house. I showed them on the screen. This is only part of the image. So the point of this is that a picture like on the left doesn't have to be technically perfect and illustrate like 11 different, photographic techniques to make a picture, a special picture for you. So Juan and I both encourage you. We both encourage you to, not be too hard on yourself. Oh, a little overexposed. We have we have a lot of pixel peepers, right? One where you zoom in 400% and everything has to be perfect. Well, it's really what the picture means to you. Hey, I see Larry T down the bottom, the inventor of the platypod and the platypod. That's great to see you. And Greg Vaughan.
Hey, so, nice to be here.
Oh, it's great to see you. So Juan, your turn.
Okay, so let me share my images here real quick. And what I wanted to do with, one of the things I wanted to do with this session was share a couple of images that meant, a lot to me. For some of you that were able to read the post that I made on Rick's phototherapy, the actual image that I showed was actually this one of a Luna moth. I took this image, I think it's 2002 or something like that. It was like 18 years ago where I made this image with a 6 megapixel 10D Canon DSLR. 6 megapixels. We're all, as Rick was just talking about, we all pixel peepers are looking for the biggest and, megapixels. Like I'm shooting now with what, I guess, I even forget, it's a 60 megapixel Sony camera. But still, this image to me means a lot not because of the quality of the image or, the size of the image or the sharpness of the image or even kind of the composition, even though a lot of those things I think still hold up pretty well. But it's because of the emotions that it brings. This is when I was living in North Carolina, so it reminds me of my property in North Carolina that I loved. I had something like, I think it was 21 acres of old growth forest, which was just amazingly beautiful. But it also reminds me of, the time where I kind of got obsessed with Luna moths and I started rearing Luna moths. And that was after I took this image. This image is actually one of the reasons why I started rearing Luna moths. So it kind of reminds me of that as well, but it also reminds me of the time that I spent in summer camps in New Hampshire. I spent about 4 different summers in summer camp in New Hampshire. And that's really where my love for nature and for animals and for plants stems from. So I spent a lot of time chasing butterflies and moths during that time and going on a lot of really cool expeditions during that summer camp. And for me, while I was there and I was building my collection of butterflies and moths, the Luna was the one specimen that I tried to get. And, I would wake up, I'd get special permission to wake up, about an hour before everybody in camp was allowed to get up. And I was able to go and cruise the camp and look at all the locations where we had light bulbs, trying to find a Luna moth so that I could capture it and mount it and put it on my collection. So that's one of the reasons why this image is so special to me, even though it's an image that a lot of people wouldn't necessarily care about because, I have found over the years that most people don't care about insects, even though I do like
Scott Kelby hates them.
Right. A lot of people don't care about insects or amphibians or reptiles, but I do love all kinds of wildlife. So for me, it's not just about how, pretty the image may be or how well composed it is. It's really more about, the connection that I have with that image. And one thing that I learned a long time ago that I attribute is one of the things I attribute the most to allowing my photography to move further was when I started shooting for myself. And what I mean by that was that, I was very active in a number of camera clubs. I was living in North Carolina, and around me, there were like 5 different camera clubs. So if you wanted to go to a camera club meeting basically every day of the week, you could do that. The camera clubs had competitions and, all sorts of other events. And, as you're starting your journey via, through camera clubs, oftentimes one of the things people like to do is to get that validation and
Right.
shoot for the competitions, shoot for the judges, shoot to win those competitions. And I found that I wasn't doing all that well when I was doing that. But when I started shooting for myself, shooting for things that I like to shoot and creating images that I like is when I found that much more success. I found much more validation, if you will. I started winning more competitions because I wasn't shooting for other people. I wasn't shooting for what I thought the judges wanted to see. I was shooting for myself. And so that's why I wanted to bring this topic up because, even though you may not think it's the best image, if it's something that resonates with you, it's probably one of the best images you may have taken. And to me, back then, when I was kind of starting into taking seriously nature photography, this image was kind of a special moment.
Well, it's someone actually said here that they said it looks like a painting, and it's just like with the with my penguin picture, right? It's taken on an overcast day and soft lighting. I think with harsh lighting and harsh shadows, it wouldn't have the same mood and the same feeling. So once again, I think it's the mood, it's the feeling, and you just mentioned connection, right? And I know Juan. I was going to call you Mr. Pons. I know, Juan, that you love wildlife photography, and I think your connection with your passion. And I think if we photograph what we love, hey, you remember when we did the podcast? We were talking about that we should photograph what we love, and I said I couldn't take a picture of a bulldozer.
Right.
And someone sends us the most spectacular pictures of bulldozers.
I remember that. Yes.
Right? We've ever seen. But I love this. Plus, it's framed for a cover, which I think is probably another good tip, right? I mean, this would make a beautiful cover of Lunar Morph Monthly.
Well, and I think one of the things that really, for me, if I take all the emotion aside, I look at the image just for the image itself, is the fact that I have this beautiful out of focus background that really pops that moth and those ferns out, and really adds dimensions to the image. And there are probably 5 other reasons why I love this image so much, but we don't want to spend all of our time on this.
I think the color, the way it's really just green, and then you have the purple.
Right. So the second image I wanted to share with you guys, this is an image that I made. I think as Rick likes to call me Mr. Winter in Yellowstone, and it's because I've been going to Yellowstone in the winter now, I think for 16 years straight, leading workshops and sometimes going on my own just because I love it there. It's just such a special place. But I made this image, I think, if I remember correctly, the very first time I went to Yellowstone in the winter. And why this image is has that strong emotional connection to me. And we all get that question: is what's your absolutely favorite image? And you say, well, I don't have one favorite image. I have multiple favorite images, but this one is certainly within that short list. And it's because when I went there, one of the things I tried to do really hard was come up with a shot list, if you will, or a series of elements that I wanted to put together to capture the essence of Yellowstone in the winter. And the process that I typically go through is to look at other people's work, not to imitate it, but to gain inspiration from and look for different elements that I may want to put together. And one of the I put together a few of the elements in my head of that I wanted to capture. Certainly bison, which is the sort of emblematic wildlife in Yellowstone, the thermals, the snow, the entire environment. And one of the things that putting those lists together and putting that those goals in front of you is because it gives you purpose when you're out there, and it gives you a drive, makes you look for these things to be able to photograph them. So the entire time that I was there, I was looking for a scene that incorporated as many of those elements that I had put in my head as a list of things to capture. Doesn't mean that I didn't take any of the pictures. I certainly took a lot of the pictures, but when I ran into the scene, I immediately knew that this image encompasses many of those different factors, of many of those different things about Yellowstone, and that's why it's a image that speaks to me. No matter what anybody says, if people don't like it or they can criticize it as much as they want, it doesn't matter. For me, it's a special image because it reminds me of that first time that I was there. It reminds me of the work that I went through to actually capture this image.
Well, you're telling the story, right? And
exactly.
That's what we
There's
are.
A story behind it.
It's the same thing with Antarctica, right? There's all these people with, and same thing I'm sure in Yellowstone or where on safari, they bring like the longest lens known to man, and they get a picture that, we have bison in the Bronx Zoo 30 minutes from here. And if it's snowing, it would look like that, right?
Well, not quite. You wouldn't have the thermals, but you wouldn't have the thermals,
right? But I think.
Well, you're right. Include him in the environment is insanely important.
Absolutely. I know a lot of Alex Morley's pictures. I don't know if anyone has seen Juan, did you see the beautiful slideshow that he put together on the phototherapy page?
No, I didn't.
Well, a lot of the members, I see them shaking their heads. They in agreement that they saw this in Alex. It was a wonderful job. The music was great. But anyway, zooming in, all the time, we all want these really long lenses. But I think shooting wildlife with wide angle lenses tells way more of a story in most cases.
I'm looking here. There's a bunch of comments from folks.
Yeah, I'm seeing there. Larry T was helping out. Randy, I don't know if it's our friend Randy Han or someone else. He says, I don't know if Randy can hear us now. Phyllis said, great slideshow, Alex. Phyllis met Alex. Not sure.
So now, I want to turn it over to you guys. Is there, we mentioned at the beginning that these meetings are meant to last 30 minutes. But, certainly people want to hang out. We can definitely hang out for a little longer. But we want to hear from you guys. And if you have images that are, that are important to you, that speak to you, that, make a connection with you, that you'd like to share with the group.
Juan, can I ask you a question? This is Larry.
Yes.
Your composition questions, beautiful images, by the way, and I particularly love the buffalo image, but you had some choices that you made, and I'm wondering how you arrived at those decisions. With the buffalo, you have the buffalo's face planted in the snow. Did you just do one shot of that image, or did you try doing the buffalo with its face out in other positions? Wondering why you chose that particular pose, and also the cropping on the Luna moth. Cropping, as Rick knows very well with his OCD issue there. Is an individual thing. I was wondering why you made your cropping choices as you did with the Luna moth. The symmetry is just a little bit off. There's a lot of green at the top. Why did you choose to do it this way?
Okay, well, I'll talk about the first one. And you're right. I wish I had the bison with its face up looking straight at me. That would have been definitely a better image. But sometimes with wildlife, you take what you can get. You can't control the animals. And this guy, actually, I think looking now as a female, this one was kind of walking towards the trees as it was eating. So at no point did it raise its head as it was going across those trees in the foreground. Yes, I do have other images, but they are, past kind of the edge of those trees. So they're more towards the right, kind of obscuring the trees. And I felt the composition was a lot better with the bison on the left.
That's so funny. I totally thought you were going to tell me something else. I thought you were going to say that when its head was up, that its face was a mess with all that snow all over it.
The mess, the snow on the face would have been great too. But no, it just, sometimes these guys, they'll keep eating and walking and eating and walking and won't raise their heads for quite some time, as people who've been out there in the winter can attest.
Yeah, and also, those of you who've been to Africa and the same thing out west there's a reason why they call these animals grazers. They're always grazing. You want a great picture of a zebra with its head up, good luck, right? Or a horse, good luck. They always have their head down.
So it's kind of interesting that you asked about the composition of this image. One of the things that this image, I don't think there's any crop to it at all. This is just absolutely full frame. And it's a little bit, I have some others that are kind of a little bit more centered. I preferred this one that was a tiny bit off center, because one of the cardinal rules of, wildlife photography is that you want to give room for the animals to move into. Right? So if you look at the front legs of the Luna moth, the left one is further up, the right one is further down. So it looks like it wants to go kind of towards the upper right. So I do have a lot of space for the animal to go into, and I have a little bit of space to the right for them to go into. And that also breaks my absolute symmetry of having the animal dead center. So that's exactly what I was thinking. Not necessarily what I was thinking when I was shooting it, but when I selected this image out of, the 20 or 30 that were around this image. Now, remember, this is the days of the 10D, which is really early on in digital photography. Even though that was my third digital SLR, I started with the D30, the D30, then the D60, and then the 10D, which was a glorified version of the D60. You were still kind of in that mode of every time you press that shutter, it costs you 25 cents. So you still didn't shoot that much. So I was surprised that when you look at these images and look at the session, I only shot like 20 images, even though it was digital, and I could have shot 100. It wouldn't have cost me any more. So hope that answers the question. So anybody else that wants to share, or any comments from anybody? What do people think about this, this session? Is this something you guys enjoy, something you guys want to keep seeing and hanging out? By the way, most of you guys are still muted, so if you want to talk, you got to unmute your microphones.
By the way, Spike, can you hear me? Can Spike hear me? Yeah. Okay, look what I have. After one of the organ workshops that I did with Alex, no, he said, Spike sent me a thank you card. How many people, today still send like a thank you card? So Spike, you're a good man.
I remember that.
Yeah. Well, anyway, this has been like a ton of fun. It's great seeing people. We love getting your questions. We're going to be doing it again. I'm looking through the comments over on the right. Good
Hi,
session.
Oh. Sorry.
Oh no, that's Sarah.
Yeah.
Sarah, what have you been up to?
Turned my dining room into a shooting area. I just bought a light pad, a 2x3 foot light pad. So I'm doing some experimental photography on that and shooting a lot of winter landscapes.
Oh,
I live in New Hampshire. It snowed this morning. I'm right on the lake, and so I've been doing a lot of landscapes and stuff.
Cool. Everyone seems to be liking everything that's going on here. Bison in winter. Well, someone says, Phyllis says she misses the podcast. Well, right now, Juan and I are doing this, and it's a ton of fun. And I see Linda there. Linda, by the way, Linda Marshall teaches meditation.
Ooh, cool.
Anyone?
Phyllis, thank you for saying that. We hear that a lot. A lot of people say that they miss the podcast and they miss listening to Rick and I every other week on their headphones.
Well, we're doing this one on Wednesdays and Fridays, right?
Right.
At 5:00 Eastern. But just getting back to Linda, she teaches meditation. So, Linda, how can people who are not as hyper as I am, how can they contact you?
Yeah, I cannot imagine Rick doing meditation. That would be something.
Well,
to see.
yeah, Rick is unique. We've come up with a whole separate program for Rick.
Yeah.
But on Tuesday nights, I do a free live meditation on Zoom. So I'll post that on the phototherapy website, and you guys are welcome to join. And I think there's a way I can even do a live feed from Zoom to Facebook. So I'm going to investigate that this week. But
that's going to be
a lot of fun, and the number of attendees is growing as people are finding it's helpful during this time.
Yeah, well, Alec was here. I don't see Alec right now, but I guess I can see everyone on the screen. You work with Alec, right?
Yes, Alec is one of the regulars, and so
awesome.
It's appointment.
Yeah,
it's a standing appointment.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious as to how people have been keeping photographically busy during this time. I know a lot of us are suffering from cabin fever. Some of us in more rural areas can get out and move up about a little bit, but those are more urban settings is a little more difficult. So what have people been doing? I'm kind of curious. You can either post on the chat, or you can speak up and tell us what you've been doing.
Yeah.
Hey, Juan.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Paul.
Hey.
Hey, Paul.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How you doing? Nice to see you.
I know. It's been a long time.
Long time.
Yeah. So, I was up in Illinois, up in the rural farmland. So we were able to go out and shoot. And there's a conservancy up in there. So we had some bison and some, a lot of bird life up there. So that's what but home now. So trying to find things to keep busy.
Yeah, especially now that you're not working, full time, right?
Yeah, retired. So trying to keep busy.
Well, I know a lot of people are going through their pictures, and it's really great to see this, right? But I know I'm going through some of my pictures that I took. Juan was talking about. When did you take the Morth picture? How many years ago? Juan?
That was, I think it was 18 years ago.
Okay,
18 years ago, yeah.
So I'm going through some of my old pictures, and actually some of the pictures that are in some of my books. And I say to myself, what was I thinking? Right? But plus, we could go back to those raw files, and, we could pull out so much information. We could make beautiful black and whites. I see a lot of people making black and whites from their color images. They need stuff to do. And speaking of black and whites, I see David Reich here. David, how you doing?
Doing fine. How are you?
Good. I didn't know you play guitar.
No, I don't. This was my son's room, and after he's been gone 10 years, and it's still hanging up there. So I'll get around to it someday, moving it, but I don't play it.
Well, I want to give, speaking of black and white, I see David, and we're going to go soon, I know, but I want to give David credit, and he remembers this, and he knows that I gave him credit in one of my books, Evolution of an Image, right? He's shaking, he's agreeing. We were up in Iceland teaching a workshop, and this is one of the reasons why I love doing workshops, and I think the same reason Juan loves it, because you learn from the participants. So, I'm out there, I'm shooting and things like that. I'm teaching how to use an ND filter. Linda Marshall now is an expert on using an ND filter. And so I got a picture that I really liked, and then we're sitting around the room at night reviewing our pictures. This is before social distancing. And I see David's picture. I said, man, where'd you get that? How'd you get that?
Nathan.
Right, David? And I went out the next day, and I got the picture, and I used it in my book. And I used your picture too. And
yeah.
So this is really one of the great things about doing workshops. And Juan and I are actually talking about doing virtual workshops online. So this may come too.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys are looking for more stuff to do online that's not work related, because I know a lot of folks are getting Zoom fatigue, right? As they're having to join Zoom out there to to do work stuff and whatnot. Sometimes it's nice to do it for something that's more personally fulfilling. I'm in front of a computer all day, trying to run my business. So sometimes, I want to get away from the computer, but it's cool to talk to, a bunch of different people and actually see people's comments here. This is really neat that some of the things that I want to share with everybody, some of the things that people have been talking about that they've been doing. People have been organizing their Lightroom catalog, which is kind of fun. But it's definitely a good time to do it. Some people have been improving their post-processing. Maybe they're looking at videos online.
So Juan, some people say they really want the virtual workshop. And speaking of virtual workshops, just want to give Alex, Alex Morley very well. What a great photographer, great co-leader. And he introduced me to someone else I see on the bottom left of the screen, one of the nicest guys on the planet, Greg Vaughan. How you doing, Greg?
Yeah, lots of familiar faces.
Lots of familiar faces. So all these comments are good. And this is going to be recorded, right? Or it's being recorded.
It's being recorded, and then we'll post that on Facebook for anybody that wants to watch it afterwards. I wasn't able to join us at 5 because I realized at 5 o'clock Eastern time is nice, but that's 3 o'clock for people that are on the West Coast, right?
Oh, yeah.
2 o'clock, sorry. There's people on the West Coast. But you know what? We're all, quarantined anyway, so they can always open this up in a separate window on their computer.
Well, I think that's a good thing. I also want to say hi to Tom Reese over there. Tom's he's a pretty funny guy if you follow him on the phototherapy page. And maybe lastly, because I know we wanted to keep this to about a half hour, Linda, are you and Mike having lobster tonight?
Oh. Sounds sweet.
Well, what I find funny is that, Linda and Mike, even though they're in the same house, they're in different parts of the house.
I know.
2 different cameras.
Well, Mike's probably making lobster, right? We went over to their house for dinner once. I know they live in Maine and it's common, but Susan and I went up there. I think they made 37 lobsters for us.
For just the 2 of you? Wow.
With vegetables. So.
And it probably cost, $37 for the 37 lobsters.
I know. But anyway, we want to thank everyone. Freddie, it's good to see you. All the musicians. Freddie, hope to play guitar live with you soon. Greg, is great to see. Spike,
hey, Rick,
Tony.
I have an idea. Maybe what we want to do, if you want to do this, make a post on the phototherapy group.
Yeah.
For people to provide us feedback and give us ideas as to what they want to do. So some of the folks also talked about that they like to see that virtual workshop. So that'd be cool. But maybe start a topic there for all of you guys to give us feedback and tell us what you'd like to see. We haven't decided on a topic for Friday, but we'll certainly be doing another happy hour Friday at 5 p.m. So we'll be posting that link pretty soon, and Rick and I will talk about a topic, or if you guys have suggestions for topic, please post it on that post that Rick is going to put up.
Photo critique. So look at that. Someone said photo critique. So we're getting the comments already.
Yeah, that's great.
So thank you, everybody. Stay safe. Stay inside. Keep your spirits up, and just do everything you can do to stay positive.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll see you guys next Friday. Thanks for joining us.
Yes.
Thank you.
Cheers, people.
Bye, everybody.
Hey, Rick.
Thank you
care.
for sending it out.
Yes. Someone has a question. Yes.
Oh.
Kathy's new acquisition.
Oh, it's Randy Hanna.
It's Randy.
Wow, a banjo.
A banjo.
Randy Hanna, by the way, is a
so
great
maybe you guys can get together and do an intro, an intro for this thing.
Well, you know what? We've talked about some fun stuff and some serious stuff here, but I really have to ask Randy a serious question.
Yeah.
Yes,
when did you shave?
Call from Paul Dearman.
Let's see.
Sorry.
Whose phone is that? It's not me.
I think right before I went to Africa.
Well, you're looking good.
Yeah, I grew the beard for the Norway and Iceland, and then it was just too hot in Kenya. It's just too bloody hot.
Yeah. Well,
So-
Randy, it's great to see you. Randy's a wonderful. People know him as a wildlife photographer, but I was at his house. I saw his studio portraits, and I said, "Remember, I said you should do a book on studio portraits because Randy." Well, you know what's really good, I think, about photography? What you learn in one area applies to another area. Like Juan's beautiful picture of the moth. You know, the background's out of focus. It has a nice mood. It's taken on an overcast day. All that stuff can apply to, to a portrait too. So, Randy, it's good to see you. It's great to see everyone here. Thank you so much. Michael Dow, I think the last time, I forget when the last time, well, he's got a, do you play drums? Is that a zildjian?
Yeah, that's about all I've been doing lately, Rick, is playing a little bit of drums in the basement. Haven't been shooting too much.
Okay. Well, you know what? We're going to have to start a whole new thing here for the musicians so we could play, live. Well, listen, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
We'll catch
you.
you.
We'll see you Friday.
Stay safe.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks, guys.